In monasteries and convents across Spain, groups of nuns are known for baking delicious confectionaries that they sell to the public. It's one of the many ways in which nuns support themselves as they commit to a life of poverty and serving the needs of others. We traveled around Spain for 2 weeks to peer into the lives of these baking nuns, learn more about their solitary existence, and ultimately discover the simple recipes that keep these convents going and connected to the public. Welcome to part 1 of our 3-part baking series. First up, we take to Spain to see these nuns in action. Then we visit Fez, Morocco to explore the communal ovens that bring the city together and quite literally feed the neighborhoods their daily bread. Finally, we depart for the French Riviera, where we dive deep into the true French obsession with baguettes, to learn how the capital of bread creates one of the most famous breads in the world. Subscribe to follow along, then sit back to enjoy a globe-trotting foodie adventure. Here we go. Most of the convents that we visited were located in and around Salamanca, a quiet town featuring beautiful churches and a renowned university. We drove an hour out to the countryside one day to visit a monastery that had kindly offered to show us around Monasterio Nuestra Señora de Porta Coeli. Yes, it's a mouthful, and a large property in El Zarzoso. This was one of the few places that had responded to our messages asking for a sister to show us around a convent. Hermana Elisa welcomed us and brought us up first to see their selection of confections. Many of the nuns we visited offer the same types of cookies, but each place has its specialty. Here, the standouts are the Obleas. They're unique because they're made in the same shape of the host, the piece of bread that transfigures into the body of Christ during a Catholic Mass. But while these obleas are almost the same, they are different. First of all, they're huge. A typical host is about this size, and it's placed in the palm of the parishioner's hand or directly in their mouth. Other than the significant size difference, the obleas are made from the exact same recipe as the hosts, but with a little bit of sugar added for flavor. We picked up a bag of obleas to enjoy back at our apartment. She warned us that these were a little bit fragile, and as you can see, it's already nicely broken up for us to have in little pieces. Let's see. This is very... Ooh, it already broke again. Alright, I'm just gonna give it a try. It's a very delicate wafer. It's got a nice little sweetness. I like how crunchy it is.
Can you taste the anise in it? Because that's the one spice that's in there.
Can't say that I can taste the anise.
It's funny, I had seen these online and I went in knowing that I wanted to try these because I haven't seen so far any of the other ones that we've been to that have actually sold these obleas. But online, I picture them being host size. Like I picture them being really small or maybe even like a big host or something. These are massive, so kind of different. Yeah, very subtle flavor.
Doesn't taste like it's all at all. Tastes exactly like a cracker, like some known crackers.
How many have we had so far?
I think just 3.
Are we really? They're addictive. I thought I was just gonna have one little corner.
Let's see, how many have you had?
1, 2, 3, 4, I think.
But your pieces have been pretty big. Look at how big that one is.
Thank you.
Back at the monastery, Sister Elisa kindly showed us the church that she and the other sisters pray in daily. This entire compound was endowed by Don Gomez de Benavides, a knight and lord who donated all of the money to build the church and monastery in 1444. This monastery hosts paid travelers and accommodations during the summer months, but none of the buildings have heat, so they close down in the winter because no one wants to stay in the 40-degree rooms. Other than that summertime accommodations business, they rely on a visitor log to account for how many people come and visit the facilities in order to get their allotment of funds from the Catholic Church. And finally, their baked goods, the hosts which they bake and sell to local churches that are within driving distance, and then their sweets which they sell to the public and people like us, are the things that keep these convents running year after year. We spent much of the next couple weeks going around to different convents and trying to buy a different kind of sweet each time. In Madrid, we visited a convent that we thought would be really interesting, but turned out to be a big tourist attraction with a bunch of guided tours going by the facility. It's interesting because the nuns here are cloistered and aren't supposed to have contact with people outside of the convent, but here's their hack. They use a little turntable that they sit behind where people can come up and they can hear the voice of the people that want to place orders, and then they put the money on the turntable, it disappears, and then what reappears is whatever the person has ordered. We took one little peek at the price list and then ducked out. Sorry nuns, 20 euros for a bag of cookies is a little too rich for our blood. We found a less touristed version of this ordering experience in Sevilla. At Convento Santa Ines, we visited a convent with only 8 active nuns.
Una docena de los
Los Cortadillos, sí.
They had a pretty robust menu of items, but they also featured the turntable for delivering orders since they aren't supposed to come face to face with the public. We ordered a box of Cortadillos de Cidra, which are a cookie made of flour, lard, white wine, and powdered sugar and filled with candied spaghetti squash, which seemed very unique. Wow, look at that. It's so nice. All right, girls. Can I try the first bite on this one? Is it okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
They're like diamond.
Very interesting. They're gooey in the middle, definitely powdered sugar on it, but it's not like overpowering as far as sweetness. It's not too sweet. Wow.
All right, here we go. Ooh, cinnamony. It does have that. Oh, maybe it's like Girl Scout cookies. Remember they used to have those ones with like the jelly?
Also in Sevilla, we met a Kenyan nun that was selling confections inside the church. Supposedly something had broken with their usual turntable delivery system, so they had to set up a makeshift shop while they got it repaired. So this was actually a unique occurrence of coming face to face with a cloistered nun, someone who doesn't usually see anyone outside of their convent.
Oh, from Kenya.
From Kenya.
Oh my goodness. How long? Almost 20 years.
In Sevilla.
In Sevilla. Here in his house.
We bought some of the Yemas, which are a very unique looking confection with a yellow egg yolk, sugar, and water filling coated in a thin layer of crystallized sugar made to look like a little mountain. It almost looks like shredded coconut or something. I don't know what
It
it's
kind of tastes like that texturally.
Very interesting. Never had anything like that. It doesn't really even taste like a pastry. It's like crunchy sugar with like a cake filling. Nuns around Western Europe got into baking because they all used egg whites to starch their habits. The stark white and black clothes they're known for. It left them with unused egg yolks, which got them into baking, making things like these yemas in Spain, or pastéis de nata in Portugal. Then that reputation for baking more than just hosts for churches led them to expand their menu offerings and sell to the public. We buzzed into another convent near Salamanca, and this really kind nun came out and met us and opened the doors of their shop just for us. We ended up asking for the Magdalenas, which are a Spanish sugar muffin eaten for breakfast, without really knowing the price, and we were surprised that a big bag of a dozen of them only cost €4.
¿Están horneando aquí? ¿O? Sí, lo hacemos nosotras.
Oh, perfecto.
Sí, están súper buenas.
Later in the car, we counted the muffins and found only 11 in our dozen, which we will forever dub the Nuns Dozen. A baker's dozen is 12 plus 1, and a nun's dozen is 12 minus 1. Consider your missing muffin a donation to their cause.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I think.
We didn't have to travel to reach our final convent. It was just a short walk from our Salamanca apartment. This convent is also from the 1400s when Spain was at its peak. This kind Portuguese nun opened her shop for us and eventually sold us some of their specialty Amarguillos, which are made with just almond flour, egg whites, and sugar. She was so sweet and ended up giving our girls some free lemon cookies before we left.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Nante de nada.
Oh my gosh. She said literally all it is egg white, sugar, and almonds. Man, those things are good. Look at those. They have some give. I don't know
there's
if you
no
can see
flour in that?
No flour. Look, right
Wow.
here. Ingredients. Almendra, almond, azúcar, sugar, clara de huevo, egg white.
Wow. After hitting 6 convents and monasteries from northern to southern Spain, we sat down in Sevilla to taste and compare all 7 of our nun-baked sweets and decide which one we wanted to try to cook for ourselves.
So which one are we doing first?
Let's do the cracker.
The cracker? All right, everybody grab your cracker. Oblea.
We're very familiar because we've eaten 20 of them.
But this is my favorite.
It sort of tastes like a fortune cookie,
I
right?
think it's very accurate. I'm tempted to dip them in peanut butter. They break instantly.
I saw
They're
it.
not really a cracker.
We're
Yemas.
gonna try Yemas.
Okay.
The interior almost has the texture of like pumpkin. They're very sweet, but I actually like them.
Sugar one?
Ozzy, what
I
about you?
like that one. The mountain.
That one?
Yeah, these.
The square, yeah. This one's my favorite so far.
You like that better?
Yeah. Okay.
No question. Do you think it's extract though?
My favorite was the almond.
So we elected to try the Amarguillos, which were delicious and supposedly very simple to make. We had to grab all of 3 ingredients: eggs, honey, and almond flour. The ones we'd bought from the convent had white sugar, which we generally attempt to avoid, and we read recipes online that used honey. So we split the difference and used a little sugar and a little honey. Okay, 4 total ingredients now. These amarguillos are the simplest thing we've maybe ever made. Combine the ingredients, form them into little balls, throw on a decorative almond if you so desire, then pop them in the oven until they're done. The entire process took about 25 minutes.
Ooh, they all look good.
How do we think we did?
They look pretty good.
Yes, they look pretty good.
It's interesting because the original recipe that the nuns had told us said just egg whites versus this recipe that I used said the entirety of the egg. They do look, despite even having the egg yolks included and having the honey included, they look paler than the other ones just overall. I know some of them were even kind of on the burn side.
I think that the other ones seemed like they had a more even bake as well.
Right.
How do you think you did on your batch of
I
cookies?
think I did good.
Do you want to try one?
Yes.
Why don't you pick it up and try it? Is it too hot, Mama?
I think it's okay. It's probably okay. Do you want to break it in half to make sure? The texture seems right.
Cut bites.
You want to try one?
Just 1 second, Lizzie.
They're not too hot, they're good.
No.
Do they taste like the other ones? Or do they taste different?
No, it's different.
Hang on, she wants to pick her own. Hang on. Which ones are better, the Nuns cookies or these cookies?
Both cookies.
Because you're eating them right now. Let's try these out. Closer to theirs than I would have suspected.
Really?
Theirs are better. You can see how with work, maybe we could get something to being like, kind of like theirs. I'm really, really glad that we found almond flour though. That would have been next to impossible to do with raw almonds with what we had, like without a high quality food processor.
Theirs are sweeter. We maybe even needed more honey than we did.
Try another plain one, Joe.
Wait, you're trying another one?
Yes.
How many cookies have you had today?
You're gonna try to see if it tastes any different without the almond.
Scientific method right there.
They're different.
But you had to try it to find out, right?
As we wrapped up our time in Spain, we were really grateful for the experience of getting to meet all of these kind nuns and see the little bit that we got to see of their convents and monasteries. However, we couldn't help but feel that we'd failed to learn as much as we'd hoped to about these nuns, what they do, and how they create their treats. We'd reached out to dozens of convents in the months before heading to Spain. Hopefully we could tour their convents, show our young Catholic daughters their way of life, and possibly bake some of these confectionaries alongside the nuns. Unfortunately, most never got back to us, and many that did said they couldn't show us anything beyond what the general public can see. We're here in Sevilla, and we reached out to so many different convents and monasteries while we were here in Spain and before we got here, and we heard back from just a couple of them. And unfortunately, they do seem like they don't really like to be exposed to the public. And we had one that had reached out to us and said that they were interested in meeting with us and maybe, showing us around and stuff. And then we told them we were gonna touch base as we got closer, and then they kind of, got back to us, and it sounded like maybe they had kind of gone back on what they said a little bit. Maybe they're not gonna really let us see inside. So we were hoping that eventually we would actually get to go into the kitchens where they make some of these cookies and maybe even get to bake with them, but we're realizing that maybe that was an overshoot for our hopes on what a nun would be willing to do with a citizen. So the population of nuns is shrinking at a shocking pace. In the United States, there are only 42,000 nuns, and the average age of a nun is 80 years old. So it's predicted that in 2042 there will be less than 1,000 nuns left in the US. And yet it doesn't seem like they're very interested in trying to inspire the next generation of nuns. We understand that some of them are cloistered and not meant to interface with the public, but many are not, and the unwillingness to show a Catholic family with 2 young, impressionable girls their way of life seems sort of counterintuitive to their mission of bringing the word of God to the public. Sadly, the days of most of these convents selling confectionaries, or existing at all, may be numbered. Cookies are an easy way to get curious people through the door, and we wish they would be willing to show more of what they do to this public audience, because their work serving the poor, sick, and vulnerable in their communities is incredible. We fear that without some monumental shift in the public perception of young girls and how they view and understand the lives of nuns, this way of life will cease to exist over the next generation after enduring for so many hundreds of years. In the end, it was still a really fun experience running around to all of these shadow bakeries, most of which opened their dusty doors just for us to sell us a bag of cookies. Our Amarguillos definitely need some work and a more even cook, but maybe soon we'll take a stab at the more technical ones like the Yemas and the Cortadillos. But until then, we'll leave the baking to the professionals and just stick to our prayers. Coming up next in our 3-part baking series, we travel to Fez, Morocco to discover their communal ovens, where moms and kids flock each morning with their freshly kneaded dough to have their daily bread tended by a master baker in a massive wood-fired oven. We track down a bunch of these ovens buried in the shadows of this ancient city, meet up with an old friend, and finally create our own dough in a traditional Moroccan house and navigate the confusing streets of Fez to get our bread baked for our homemade lunch. Stay tuned and subscribe to follow this series and our other travel stories around the globe.